So he goes, let's rewind. 100 years ago, you're a 1920, you're a left arm spinner. You can't play for England because you're brown and you're not white. How do you feel about that? I said, yeah, I feel like, that. He goes, that's what discrimination is. It's not even color of your skin. It's class, it's education, it's ageism. It's so many different things to it, right?
Let's touch on an important yet controversial topic, which is racism in sports. I mean, again, like I say, with different sports people on, it's something we talk about regularly. In the little that I know about cricket, one thing I do know is one of my lawyers was actually chairman of Yorkshire Cricket Club or whatever it was when there was the big racism scandal up north. I mean, I don't know, maybe you want to touch on that story or tell me some other thoughts about racism that is or isn't there. And I guess you will have either experienced it or seen it as a Sikh in English sport.
Yeah, look, I think that subject is really interesting because it's a complex subject. If you ask me, since I did my degree in journalism, I got challenged. I was asked by my lecturer. He goes, "Do you remember a boxer called Len Johnson?" And I go, "No, I don't remember him." He goes, "In 1920, he was one of the best boxers in the world, but he could not fight for the British title because of the colour of his skin, because he was black and he couldn't play." He goes,
What
"How?"
year was that?
1920s, 100 years ago. So he goes, let's rewind. 100 years ago, you're a 1920, you're a left arm spinner. You can't play for England because you're brown and you're not white. How do you feel about that? I said, yeah, I feel like, that. He goes, that's what discrimination is. Discrimination is where the color of your skin, because of the color of your skin, you can't, let's say, get into leadership positions, you have a glass ceiling, and that's it. But because you're, it's not even color of your skin, it's class, it's education, it's ageism, it's so many different things to it, right? From which school you're from which area you're from, the people that you know, suddenly you don't get it because the other person gets the jobs, the other person gets the work because his best mate is a CEO and his son is in there, and that's how it works.
But do you think sometimes though people would cry racism for the sake of racism when the reality is it's just mates? Like, you're up for a job and my best mate's up for a job. I give my best mate the job. Okay, it might be the wrong thing to do because you might have been the better thing, but I didn't give him it because he's white. I gave him it because he's my best mate. And then you start, he's only done it because he's white. I mean, do you think that causes?
Yeah, sometimes that confusion can take place where you overplay that card, the color of the skin and all that kind of stuff. But I think now what's happening is the more people are calling it out and the more people are having a conversation about it, like now we're having a conversation about it, I think it's better. It gives you an idea that actually sometimes the racism that does exist can be sort of hidden, where they could be nice to you and say, yeah, everything's great, but inside they know we're going to give the job to the other guy because for whatever reason, he's my mate or this and that, right? But even that is like, discrimination. If you're going to give your mate the job, but your other candidate is better qualified, you should be giving it to the better qualified, not because he's your mate.
Absolutely.
But in life, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes when you're selecting a group of people to work in an organization, you always think about how will we get along as a team? Do we have a good laugh? Is it fun? That also plays a part. So there's so many contributions. But when we talk about racism and obviously the Yorkshire stuff that happened.
What happened?
Well, I think, Azim Rafiq, he obviously said that his career got shortened because of the color of his skin. They would not pick him because of that, right? And then when I'm in London and speaking to some of my other mates, right, and these are like white British mates, they say to me, they go, going to Yorkshire is a different country. It's so different to the rest of the world, the rest of England. Yorkshire is just, I think they had a rule that only after 1990, that if you are born in Yorkshire, then you can only play for the county. If you're born outside Yorkshire, you cannot play for the county. And they didn't have an overseas player either. But other counties were having overseas players in the 80s that were black, that were Indian. Northants in the 70s had that. So you can see that the other counties were probably easier to embrace diversity, embrace these things. But for Yorkshire, I think it took longer to understand that because they never allowed overseas players from the West Indies, from India to play in Yorkshire. And I think if they did, then they would have understood other cultures. And they often say, you look at when England won the 2019 World Cup, Owen Morgan, Irish, Jofra Archer from Barbados, Adil Rashid, Pakistani, Moeen Ali, Pakistani, Jason Roy, South African, Chris Jordan, West Indian. That's diversity there. And they won the World Cup. And I think England is changing now. I think England there's less of the, let's say, people that they were in the 1950s, 1940s, how England was. Over time, I think times are changing. We never had Google, 20 years ago. Now we're in the digital age. Now we've got apps on our phone. We never had Twitter. So I think with that, also culturally, things are changing. And I think often people see that a diverse organization is actually more profitable than maybe not being diverse. And I think now people are catching on that even if I don't understand diversity, if I say to you, you're going to be much more profitable, you're going to be better for your business, with diverse training, people are willing to do that. But then there's still, certain people, whatever ways their mindset is, they will probably say, no, we're still in the 1940s and the 1950s. It's like, I want our organization to be only, British white people. I don't want anyone else in there. And they won't say it openly, but you can see the evidence in the recruitment process. And then you're like, you can't say nothing.
Have you personally experienced anything or been subject to anything over the years?
See, I was looking back to that. I sat down and I thought, have I ever got racially abused? And the answer was no. Because I loved cricket so much and I played for England, I was one of the main players, used to win games for my country, and the fans used to just love everything about the way I played cricket. They embraced that. So I remember an incident when, due to Euros, I was in underground, there was all just white people in there, a few, that look of the skinheads and everything like that. You think, geez, right, I do a bit of boxing, I better get ready, eh? It's going to be me and 20 others, better be ready. Next thing, they're shouting, Monty Panas are shouting and everything. We all started singing with them. And then I think my experiences of living up in England is probably not a fair representation of a British Asian guy coming through, King Charles or all the other great people, the great people in this country. They all know who I am. When I go into a room of VIP, everyone knows who Monty Panas is. But that's not a reflection of a British Asian. They know everyone who they are. So when people come and talk to me about these issues, then I get an understanding. I'm like, yeah, Lewis Hamilton, Anthony Joshua, Monty Panas, they all know who they are. Everyone knows who they are. But that's not a fair representation. And sometimes you've got to also, since I've become a journalist and a broadcaster, you suddenly put that head on and you think, right, what is the real issue? What is racism really all about? What is it exactly all about? Why we keep talking about it? Why does it always come up in subjects? Why is it yet again, there's another topic. And when you go into it, you kind of think, at times it can be overdone. At times it's spot on. And I think there is a change. I think organizations are saying, hang on a minute, we've got to just have a look at our organization. We may not be racist, but let's just see how many people are of a different background. And when it's not like that, then suddenly they start recruiting like that, so they don't get accused of being in like a racist organization.